All right, welcome back, everybody. This is episode 38 of the Junto, and I'm Noah Sawyer, and I'm starting extremely late. It is basically midnight, but I fell asleep, and so that's just the way it is. In May, I'm moving, so the studio will be different, and the show should be earlier at that point because it's just a different situation. I should be quieter by like 10 at the new set, so I think I'll be starting at like 8 or 9 and definitely wrapped by 10, and I think that will be a pleasant improvement. I need some sort of other thing to impose itself on my sleep schedule because I've been staying up till like 4 in the morning. So yeah, it is what it is, but I want to do a show because I'm going away for this week, so I won't be around for the rest of the week until next Monday. And yeah, I'm just in the midst of moving, so everything's really chaotic. That is what's up with me. So anyway, today, the title for this one right now, I might change it because I don't know, I woke up and I just had to title it something. It's not exactly, it doesn't give a great impression of what I wanted to talk about. I just called it Disrupting Phone Addiction because it is about that, but really I've been thinking a lot about temptation and discipline and what I really want in life and how I wind up spending my time in life. And a lot of this reflection came during the season of Lent, which was a period of time where I was considering converting to Catholicism, and ultimately I did at the end of the Lenten season and the start of the Easter season. And it's just a time to study your I don't want to make it sound too negative, but study your failures comes to mind, or study your conscience, study your conscience and what you really want to be doing in life. And so with that comes positives and negatives. And really it's a time of fasting, and thus you want to fast from those things that are negative, or fast from those things, even positive things like eating, that make you reflect on how every little thing affects you as a person. Because say you're fasting from food, you start reflecting more deeply on your mood in certain social encounters with people because you become irritable when you're hungry. So it gives you access to things that you would never access if you were eating or if you were entertaining yourself, like just scrolling or all this stuff. When you stop scrolling, you start facing, you are finally allowed to face the parts of you that engage with boredom, and I don't mean engage positively, because I think a lot of us are really averse to boredom because of how the phones and other things have set us up to be always desiring novelty, always desiring satisfaction, always desiring pleasure or dopamine, and it's so accessible readily with very little work. So yeah, so when you take that away, you realize like, oh, I really don't want to be bored. Oh, I'm really uncomfortable now that I've taken that away. Anyway, so for me though, over the course of Lent, I was thinking a lot about, well, like when you're considering converting to Catholicism, it is especially like later in life and not in, I don't know, a lot of people get confirmed in the Catholic Church when they are teenagers. And I think you can't really understand what it means to really be Catholic in the modern world until later, unless you get a really good education as a child and a teenager, which is possible, but I know that that's not what a lot of people receive. So there's sort of a differing conception of what that means. Some people assume it just means that you are changing your beliefs and joining or buying into that religious framework for the world, and that is a passive thing, or almost like a fashionable thing, or it's like something you wear. You wear your particular religious beliefs, but they don't affect what you actually do in the world or what you actually do with your life. But I found that it's actually very different in Catholicism, and it is an intense, lifelong commitment. And I mean, not necessarily lifelong. You could always, what's that word? I don't know the verb form of. You could always apostatize. I guess you could always step away and renege on the commitment. However, when you are, we don't know what the future holds, but for now, it is an intense, it's a giving up of old ways of life to understand a new way of engaging in the world. So something I was thinking a lot about over those Lenten months was basically sexuality, and how like that is I don't know, our current society, sex is extremely I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's just kind of considered a thing that you do when you're my age. There's a very casual approach to it, I guess. And that is something that you like a major tenet of Catholicism is chastity. So something I was really thinking about over the Lenten months is, I don't know, that Saint Augustine quote, the like, give me chastity and temperance, but not yet, something like that, a very famous quote, was highly relatable, where it's like, okay, well, I don't actually want to give up having sex. And that was that was one of the primary fulcrums on which things were adjusting for me over that period. And it wasn't until, the day of, I wasn't having sex like leading up to it. I was essentially pretty chaste, but I'm thinking to the future. So I'm like, well, when I get confirmed, it's like that part, it's over. Like, I'm dead to sex at that point. That is, except in the context of marriage, which, I don't think I'm getting married anytime soon, although I'm open to it. But so that was very, I don't know, that was what was characterizing my Lenten reflection on my conscience the most, I would say. And so I'm going to connect this to the pleasure that we derive from phones as a distraction, because there are different ways you could conceptualize this kind of thing. I obviously think of it spiritually, but you could psychologize it very effectively. So I don't want to turn people off by using a religious framework for this, because it does affect all of us. And I think so what I'm getting into is essentially temptation to do things that are bad for you, or temptation to hurt yourself, or the death drive in psychology, or like diabolical influence in a Catholic spiritual framework. So there is in a sense, there's a lot of ways to approach this, and I guess I'll start with the simplest one, which is denial, and that can be a denial by default, a denial without understanding. So some people think that they know who they are, they know why they're doing what they're doing, and they know what they want. But really, I think we all here at the Junto can acknowledge that things are a little more deep than that. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of contradiction, and sometimes there's outright conflict within a person trying to make a decision. And if there's conflict, then there are sides to the conflict. And that means there are parts of us utilizing psychic energy engaged in processes that are arguing for one thing or another thing. And the phone is a great example of this, because I think most people can relate to spending a whole bunch of time scrolling on your phone, and then you finally put it away and you're like, oh my God, like, why was I just doing that for hours? And now like, you snap back to reality, and the reality is worse because you were just on a phone for 4 hours, not remembering anything about it, or like, not doing anything that you really wanted to be doing with your time. And with short form content, or even long form content, a lot of it, is just water under the bridge. You don't really, catch for good a whole lot of what's going on. It's more just about the present endurance, the present enduring that distraction, going through that distraction, being taken away from your boredom in the moment. So what I noticed over the period of Lent was that I was getting, it felt like all like it, what's a good word for this? It felt like my whole sexual life up to that point was coming into a transition point, a very significant transition point. And when you're approaching a transition point like that, parts of you start freaking out, like just totally freaking out, because obviously parts of me want to have sex, parts of me don't, and I'm trying to be ruled by those parts of me that don't want to. And I could elaborate on that another time. It doesn't seem super relevant to the video, but I mean, it will come out, but I'll talk more about that in the context of the phone. Although I'm sure it relates to everybody in terms of sexuality as well, to some degree. And so basically I could really, like, the temptation, essentially, the temptation, I'm describing temptation as those things that take you away from what's really good for you or what you really, really want for yourself in your heart. And so the temptation to just hook up with someone, which is, you know, we are in a hookup culture. It's not really that hard to do. That temptation started rising in me much more intensely as I got closer and closer to my confirmation, to the point where it was like just so intense. I was really reflecting on sexuality and I'm trying to study those temptations because I want to neutralize them in a healthy way. So you start wondering, like, well, what do I really want out of this? Like, why is this part of me freaking out? Is it because part of me actually just wants to be, like, comforted, or like, I don't know. I guess I didn't study it in super fine detail, but, and it's like part of me, you know, obviously I don't want to be too TMI here for anybody, but all those drives to have sex, some of it is really just coming from a drive to want connection, or a drive to not want to be alone, or a drive to want to be cared for. So when you really start studying those temptations, you can discover parts of yourself that are just freaking out because they're afraid that they're not going to be able to get that. And the rationale through my chastity is that actually I'm going to find ways to, like, love and care for and heal all those parts of myself in a way that casual sexuality could never do for me. And in fact that casual sexuality would agitate for me. It would become problematic for me to engage with that, because it creates social tension, I think, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different ways to be affected by a sexual encounter with someone who you don't actually completely love, or who you've not actually completely mutually giving yourself to in care and love and support. And so anyway, that's a little bit of a preamble, because ultimately I did get confirmed in the church, and it was really interesting what happened after. So it's been just over a week, and finally, like, it's like a switch flipped in me, where that is no longer the temptation, that is no longer the means for my temptation to operate at all, because it knows that I'm not going to do that now anymore. It knows that, like, because I'm confirmed, I'm not fucking around in that way, I guess literally. But there's I don't know. I was not expecting this to happen. I really wasn't sure what was going to happen after my confirmation with these feelings of lust. And what I've noticed is that it's been pretty much closed off. Like, it still shows up a little bit, but it's really easy to just get rid of those thoughts, or those yeah, I don't know, of those thoughts. And so now it's like those parts of me are really seeking something else. And what it has stepped down to, I think maybe lust was the easiest thing to trap me with as a particular person. And now that is gone and it has stepped down. And now out of nowhere, I'm like really suddenly there were a few days last week where I really scrolled on my phone like a lot, like out of nowhere. And I had no problem with that during Lent. I guess like I had barely any problem with that during Lent. I was spending a lot of time not on my phone at all. And now it has switched gears where now it's like it's like that's being deployed because the first thing has become too definitively eschewed from my realm of possible actions. Like now I'm not going to engage in casual sex. It's done. And so it's as if these like parts of me that want don't want what's best for me are now like, okay, well, like what else can we do? Well, we can get him to sleep too much or be lazy, or we can get him to waste time on the phone. So this prompted me to start thinking about how to get off my phone, because I just spent all this time thinking about the lust thing, and that was easy enough in the long run. And that's so cut and dry. It's like you ultimately can just stop doing that. Even like self sexuality or masturbation, like you can just stop. And especially, with the power of having been confirmed like that, it just puts a new type of responsibility on you for what you're trying to do with your life. So, but the phone is a lot more slippery. Like everyone is wasting tons of time on their phone, and it's just totally publicly acceptable. And I mean, casual sex is too, but it's like you can scroll on your phone anywhere in any public space. You can do it in the courtroom. You can do it on the bus. Can't do those things with masturbation or full on sex. So yeah. Anyway, where's I getting at? Oh yeah. So the past couple days, I was like, okay, I need to like stop and figure this out, because I had 2 nights in the past week where I had that feeling, which, very familiar feeling from the past. And then I got better at regulating my ability to be on the phone. But there's so that feeling of it being 1:00 and I'm like scrolling on my phone or doing something on my phone, and I'm like, I don't even know how to describe this feeling, but I think a lot of people will know what it is, where it's 1:00, I'm doing random shit on my phone or my laptop, and I'm like, it's going to be 3:00 at some point. Like if I don't stop doing this, it's going to become 3:00. And then it becomes 2, and I say the same thing to myself, and then it becomes 3, maybe it becomes 4. And that's just not how I want to live. So those were really striking to me, because that hasn't happened to me like that in a while. Like it was, I mean, every once in a while out of the blue, but it really seems like there was a total revamped effort from parts of my psyche to turn me back into a phone addict. And so I need to study, I need to study that temptation in order to neutralize it. And by neutralize, I don't mean just repress. I mean like integrate those energies, move forward in a healthy way, and like understand like where are they coming from, why, and how can I move forward. So that is what I did a little bit last night. So I was just going to share my thoughts. I was just going to share some of what I wrote about that. Well, not really read it, but actually what I had was I made this tiny little book a while ago. I made this tiny little book probably like over 6 months ago, which says Get Off Your Phone. And I did not fill it out. I only filled out like the first page. It has 3 like double page spreads in the middle and then a back. And I only just started filling out the first page, and then it just sat on my pile of papers for many months, more than half a year, I reckon. And so yeah, last night I was like, I need to fill this out, and then I can tuck it inside of my smartphone case, so it's just always there, and I can remind myself how to get off. And I was just, it was like writing the final draft in the first go. Like, I didn't really think all that much about it, but I just tried to decide three subjects for each of those inner page spreads. And what I started months ago was essentially just like that this device is integrated into the industrial matrix of advertising and intelligence, data mining and surveillance, all of this stuff that I don't want to be engaged in any more than I have to be. And so that's kind of where I started with it. And it's like just to start looking at my phone as this device that is not mine. It's not really mine, and it's not really for me. And the things that I do on there are not really private. So that is one thing that's like putting a bitter taste on the joys of the phone. It's like that's one way you can get children to wean off of breastfeeding. You just like add like bitter aloe or something, and the child just kind of like, it just doesn't want that in its mouth anymore, and you move along. So there's so yeah, it's like, just conceptually, that's sort of what that feels like to me. And anyway, so I don't have a whole lot to say about that one, but I guess if I had to put it in like one phrase there, it's just like, give it as little as possible. Like, you don't even know if your microphone or your camera are recording you at times that you are not intentionally using them for that. You just don't know what this device is. You don't really know where it came from. You don't really know where the software came from. You can't trust it, and so don't give it anything. Why give it anything more about you than you are forced to, or than you have to for the sake of doing something good with it? Because like I say, that I don't hate the phone as a piece of technology. I think you can do great things with it. However, try to make sure you're doing something great, or at least good for you, with that phone if you're giving it your information, if you're giving it parts of yourself. And so that brings me to the next thing, which is that the phone imposes a whole lot on us, and we don't know the origins of that either. So I guess that's not exactly the next thing. It's just sort of, I guess it's just kind of related to this, but let me think. Sorry, I'm just trying to think how to organize this, because it's a little, the boundaries are not totally clear, but okay, I guess thinking of it as a temptation, like the temptations, they're bad because there's sort of a war of attrition that goes on through parts of ourself that want to weaken our resolve to do those things that we really ought to be doing in life, that are scary to engage in, or that require courage to engage in. And so I think we are getting really addicted to comfort in a certain way, and that comfort comes at a high cost, because it's more an illusion of comfort than a true comfort. So it's like these sorry, it's like I said, it's midnight. I just woke up. I gotta think for a minute. I guess, what does the phone do? Or what does doom scrolling do, especially that type of engagement with content? It soaks up your time, and it soaks up your time, and it dumbs you down in certain ways, because when it's soaking up your time, all our time that we spend in this life is setting us up for the next moments of this life. It's all setting us up for the future. And so when you do things that ultimately weaken your attention or weaken your memory or atrophy your ability to concentrate, that stuff is not only, well, yeah, that's the condition for soaking up your time, is it's taking your time, and it's not only getting rid of it, but by nature of getting rid of it, it is hurting you. And the way that the phone specifically hurts you is that it sets you up to just be weaker and weaker, to have weaker attention abilities, concentration abilities, communication abilities, and then you're being inundated with so much information, both image and video and language and human, or like semi-human, and that all sticks. That all lands inside you and sets you up as a person who's preparing to do things in the world, preparing to interact with people in the world. But if a lot of these interactions, these sub-interactions, these false interactions that you receive through the phone with someone who's, say, just recording like a video of like a talking head video like this one, I don't know, that enters into you and it sets you up to engage with people in the future in a certain way. Maybe you remember a phrase and that phrase sticks with you and you just start using that phrase. There's so much mimetic stuff that goes on with our engagement that it's dangerous. And that's kind of that's the flip side of the give it as little as possible, is take away as little as possible. Take away only what you really need. Don't just start taking everything. Don't scroll through everything just on the off chance that you find something good. If you do that, it sticks with you. It changes you. And that combined with the atrophy, it shapes you into someone that I can't imagine you really want to be. It shapes me into someone that I don't want to be. And so that's why I'm trying to break this right now. So yeah, so it akin to that, it, like the last thing I wrote there is, it halts the work and it undoes the work. So all of our time spent awake on the planet could be used in ways that are good for us. And I'm not going to define exactly what I mean by good for us, but I think you get the idea. I think some things clearly strengthen us as people, better prepare us for all kinds of futures that we might be forced to face, strengthen our relationships, increase our ability to get the most out of this single life that we're going to live. And when you spend time doom scrolling, it halts that work. And not only does it halt it, it starts to pull all the threads of your work and undo it and tear it apart. So that's that second section in there. And this last section that I wrote is something like, while you are doing that, and certainly while you get used to doing that habitually, when that becomes a part of your life, every time you're doing that, and every time you are living as a person who is the creation of that, the real world is burning around you. I remember a friend of mine who used heroin completely convinced me, and I wasn't convinced. I wasn't convinced at first. I was depressed and suicidal, and heroin was ultimately on the table of things I might do in my life. So talking to this friend, she really completely put it off, took it off the table, because she said, if you have all these problems and you just want to feel some kind of pleasure, like you just want an escape, even if it's for a moment. And I'm like, yeah. So she said, well, the issue is, it does give you that escape and it does give you an extremely intense pleasure, but it makes everything that is causing your problems a lot worse, whether they're in society, whether they're in your psyche. It throws gas on the fire over time on all of those things. And and ultimately it adds all these problems too. You become physically addicted to it. It makes you, like, if you hate yourself to some degree and you're depressed and then you do that, it's going to make you hate yourself even more, is part of the argument she was presenting. So that, just as a rational argument, I was like, it was just totally off the table from then on, because I was like, yeah, I do feel horrible, but I would hate to feel even worse. And even a day of relief from how horrible I felt would not be worth waking up the next day and having it be worse. I was like, maybe it'll get worse no matter what, but I'm not going to guarantee that it gets worse through an action of my own. So that, yeah, so basically to take a seemingly less extreme example, but a highly insidious and serious example, I do think the phone addiction is extremely bad for people, really bad for families, really bad for society, bad for children, bad for everybody. And we're just getting, I mean, who knows if society will really acknowledge that in a deep way, but there's some level of acknowledgement that has been arising in the past year especially. Who knows if people will ever really accept how bad this is for you as a person, how bad it is for your psyche. We'll find out. But so that's the heroin example, is just to say, when you do these escapist things or these habitual distracting things, your problems get worse in the real world. They are just going to, like, if you think you want an escape now on the phone, like, you're going to want, if you want an escape from your problems now and you're going on the phone and you habitualize going on that phone and you do that for years, your problems are going to be so much worse in those later years. And this is really different for everybody, so I don't want to speak too generally, because some people really do just adapt to this stuff. But when you adapt to this stuff, you lose the depth of the world. If you really do live a happy life, totally plugged in and distracted from the world, like, you might be fine and feel fine, but I really think there's a lot that is missing. And so on this page of the little thing that I wrote, I was just saying, like, well, what's the opposite of that? What's the opposite of escaping and throwing gas on the problems? It doesn't even need to be facing those problems head on immediately, but it just has to be remembering the universe that we are in all of its extreme and infinite detail at all scales of being. And I think when we start to remember those things, it shows us that the world offers us joys that we are rejecting and that we are denying by spending time on our phone. And within creation, it's not just like an intellectual comprehension of creation. Like, the world offers us so many experiences and lessons and beauty, and there's so many things to practice and to learn, and there's social relationships to develop, and there's strength that we can gain over our life that allows us to do different things and defends the things that we care about in our world. And if you neglect that, you become weak, and all of the good in our society, any hypothetical good that we could take back for ourselves, if we are not strong in certain ways, if we're not capable and adaptable people who are able to strategize or have a political system that functions in a non-totally expropriative way, then it's just like say goodbye to any potential for any freedom at that point. So I think the phone addiction is just sort of proto freedom loss that allows you to consent to deeper freedom loss. And I can define freedom another day. It's obviously kind of a major thing that I think about. Yeah, and another thing that goes along with that is when you start remembering all those good things, all those things that there really are worth living for, you can then start remembering all the distractions that do afflict you, and all those things to give up, all those things that there are that you don't want to spend your time doing. And I recommend this as like an actual study, depending on what your own proclivities are, like what you are drawn to in a good way or a bad way. And like, and just try to refine like a way to bring yourself back to yourself, to say no to all of those things. I think of that story or saying in Islam that I referred to once on the show, where it's like, sweep out, like your body is a house, it's God's house, sweep out everything that is not God from this house, sweep out everything. And that may sound like getting rid of the world or getting rid of creation, but God created the world. There's a presence, there's an existence in all being, but you want to sweep out all these things that take you away or make you forget about the true significance of life. So anyway, it's like I want to become dead to all of that, in a sense, like to wrap it all around, and then I can cut it off. I was talking about my temptation I was talking about how lust was the major lever of temptation in my life as I was approaching my confirmation date. And then on my confirmation, like, I really became dead to sex. And like, the temptation is there, but I became dead to it in that I was not going to live it. I was not going to engage in that. And the parts of me that are desperate to not grow as a person and not be strong or not be myself, the parts of me that are afraid of the world and want to retreat or want to dumb me down or want to, whatever it is, those parts of me that are trying to hold me back, they switched up their strategy immediately. And that was it was very bizarre to experience, because I became dead to sex, and then suddenly I was like doom scrolling like I hadn't in months. And it's like, okay, well, now I need to become dead to my phone. Like, I want to become dead to my phone, and then I'll see what they throw at me, until I become, in a sense, dead to the whole world, dead to all temptation, but alive with God and creation. So there's a deeper sense of life that comes out of all of that, because it is, I don't know. I just think there's more to life than spending time on the phone. I think there's more to sex than casual sex could ever offer a person. I think there are deep and healthy ways to have a sexual relationship that transcend anything like probably anyone in America is experiencing in their life at all at this point, based on our culture. Like, I don't know, there's just so much more to that facet of human experience, and it's just being thrown in our face. There's sexuality used in advertisements. There's these crazy ads on Instagram now trying to get you to use their AI video creator, and it's really weird, because it'll just be like, they use very extreme examples. So it'll be someone like skydiving in a city, but it's AI. So you think it's real, and they use things that catch your eye, and then it's like, try our new AI video creator. And the other thing that they use, other than those like extreme physical experiences, is like sex, or it'll be like a woman in a bikini walking, like, I don't know, just wherever. And then, yeah, it's eye-catching, and then it's like, oh, this is not even real. This is extremely disturbing. It would be disturbing enough if it was real and it was just being utilized to get your attention and get you to click on something and to degrade you morally in a certain way. So, but that's even worse, because now it's doing all that, and it's not even real. It's just adjusting you to getting used to seeing seeing video that did not come from the world, seeing video that did not come from even a intention, like conventional CGI, conventional human animation or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. I guess one last little thing I think about with respect to these temptations is like studying the opposite. Like, how can you, if you have an issue, or like if you're tempted to do something that's bad for you, like scroll on the phone, like what's the opposite of that? For me, that could be reading a book is one thing that has been coming to mind. So especially finding but don't leave the choice open. Make it so that it's so easy to decide. So if you're tempted to scroll on your phone, it's just extremely easy to be like, nope, phone off. I'm going to read this specific passage from this book that kind of reminds me where I really am and what the world is really like and what I really want to do with my life and what I really want out of my relationships with other people. Find passages like that and just enter into those instead of engaging in temptation. Hello to the person who says hi in the chat. So yeah, I guess just while I'm here real quick, if anyone's curious, there's going to be some changes to the show that should be pretty good. And like I said, I'm moving, but I think the show is going to get earlier. And I think it's also going to get a little more organized. And I don't know, I'm moving from an environment that I really don't like and that induces anxiety to one that it's an experiment, but I have a feeling it's going to be great. So I think I will just be in a better state. And when I'm in a better state, I'm able to do better work. So I think the Junto will be leveling up pretty soon, basically. And yeah, if you're watching, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and share it with any friends. And if you want to support me, I do have a Patreon now. I will mail you books. I will mail you, like I was just saying, I sometimes those things those anti-temptation phrases, passages in books, I will try to memorize those so that I have them, so that I can just recite them in my mind. If I'm in a moment where I'm uncertain, I can try to bring myself back in that way. So yeah, some of the tiers are I'll send you a book, I'll send you a card with something I type wrote, a passage from literature or religion of something that I think is nice and brings me back to the world. And and there's a group chat on there that I think eventually will become pretty interesting because that's what the show is about, is different people coming together and sharing different things and mutually helping each other get through our societal situation and change it up. So I appreciate you for watching and have a good rest of your week. I'll see you in a week on Monday. All right. Oh, actually, one more favor to ask. If you have an Instagram and could follow my Instagram, it's American Junto. It just, if I break 200 followers, which I'm like right on the verge of, it will give me some developer tools or some professional tools that would help me do stuff on there. It would just become easier to use and more effective to use at that point. So I would like to just get over that hump. If you could follow the Instagram, I'd appreciate it. So, all right, have a great weekend. Have a good night. Thank you.